Now, let me take you to the second part of today's lecture, that is the historical and modern perspective. In this context, the first category is climate change, their historical perspective. Students, the climate has changed over time, going through both ice ages and warm periods. But industrialization, especially after 1750, was a turning point because it made people dependent on fossil fuel. Now let me explain to you the modern day climate change. Scientific proofs includes the temperature of the world is going up, glaciers getting smaller, warming of the ocean, more extreme events, observation from satellite. These are few of the factors which has validated that yes, there is a change in climate. Apart from that, the IPCC reports shows that humans are causing the earth to warm. Now the question is, what is the impact on primary, secondary and the tertiary sector? When it comes to primary sector, failure of crop, fisheries are going down, degradation of forest, these are the negative impact of climate change. Taking you to the secondary sector, damage to infrastructure, stress from heat in the workshop, and most of the vulnerable groups such as the migrant laborers or females are affected by the heat waves in urban areas. Now let me take you to the problems associated with the tertiary sector. As we know that tourism is getting down because of the rising risk of climate change. Risk in the insurance industry, yields variability puts food security at risk. So what should be done? There is a need of a regulation not only at grassroots level but at international level, because of which the climate justice and climate finance concepts came into picture. Climate justice acknowledges disparate accountability and varied consequences. In the past, developed countries released more greenhouse gases. Developing countries want fairness in climate action. There are different ways to get money for climate change, such as funds for the green climate, fund for adaptation, markets for trading carbon. Through market mechanism, carbon trading makes it possible to cut down on emission. Another emerging concept is the idea of net zero. What is it? To reach net zero, you have to balance emissions with the carbon removal through forest or technology. Countries set deadlines, like India wants to be at net zero level by 2070. Now, let me take you to the third part of today's lecture, that is on global governance. And in this regard, UNFCCC and COP Summit is very crucial. The 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change helps countries to work together. Meetings of the conferences of parties, COP, helps with the negotiation. The second international convention was Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol set binding emission targets for developed countries when it was passed in the year 1997. The third most important regulation is the Paris Agreement. Students, the goal of the Paris Agreement, which was signed in the year 2015, is to keep warming below 2 degrees centigrade, but 1.5 degrees centigrade would be better. Now, let me take you to the next part of today's chapter, that is vulnerability and adaptation. Defining vulnerability is most important. Vulnerability encompasses being physical vulnerable, means being open to danger. Economic vulnerability, which deals with losing money or damaging property. Social vulnerability, that means being left out, being treated unfairly. I have to define vulnerability. Vulnerability is equal to exposure plus sensitivity minus ability to adapt. In this context, you need to understand the adaptive capacity. What is it? Adaptive capacity is based on learning, infrastructure, governance, technology, and networks of people. The third crucial aspect is vulnerability assessment frameworks. Where was it discussed first? The IPCC framework of United Nations Development Programme and the Livelihood Vulnerability Index. These are the tools for the community level assessment. The Crystal tool, Climate Wizard, GIS based hazards mapping tools, like these are the tools with which we assess the risk and the vulnerability of hazards such as floods, droughts, heat waves and cyclones. So now, after this aspect, let me take you to the next part of the lesson, that is adaptation framework. Students, this course also describes about the national and international adaptation framework. Adaptation framework for countries and the word national adaptation plans. NAPCC in India, 8 national missions state action plans on climate change, integrating adaptation into development climate factors that need to be included in the policy for framing planning for city designing infrastructure. Urban infrastructure is not the only most important aspect when we talk about climate change, but there is a need to strengthen the indigenous local knowledge. Some common traditional practices such as water collection, for example Johats in Rajasthan, growing different crops together, moving around in pastoral life, knowing about your region, that strengthen the concept of indigenous conservation. Now the sixth part of this course is early warning and resilience, in which we describe about the early warning system. When it comes to early warning system, flood forecasting, tracking cyclone, sending out heat waves alert, keeping an eye on the drought, agriculture that can handle climate change, crops that can survive drought, efficient irrigation and different kinds of crop. Besides that, urban system that can handle climate change, roofs that are green, wetlands in cities, plans for dealing the heat, urban heat concept. These all aspects are discussed in this particular part. To make you understand different concepts of climate change, vulnerability and adaptation, different case studies has been cited from India and all across the world. For example, from India, flood situation in Kerala, retreat of Himalayan glacier, heat waves in Telangana. These are few examples that discuss at national level. Besides that, when we talk about international scenario, fire in the wildlife in Australia, heat waves in Europe, areas that are still developing, for example, drought in Africa, cyclone in Bangladesh. We have also cited examples from a small island developing states such as Maldives that are at a higher risk of high sea level rise. Now, to make you understand the aspect of sustainability, the part 8th deals with the resource sustainability. Why is it so? Resource sustainability makes sure that these mentioned things will be available for a long time, such as water, woodlands, power. Climate change throws off the balance of resources. It has an effect on the health, migration, settlement pattern and consumption trend. So you can see that climate change is affecting not only the natural cycle but also the anthropogenic factors related to it, such as vector-borne diseases. Vector-borne disease like malaria and dengue are spreading because of this global warming. Once you understand the concept of resource sustainability, then there is a need to understand disaster risk reduction. What is it? Climate resilience is connected to lowering the risk of disasters. This is known as disaster risk reduction. Glacial lake outburst, cyclone, landslide, bushfire and very hot weather. How to measure vulnerability at local level, at regional level, at national level, at international level. All these concepts has been discussed in DRR.